Welcome to Life Mastered, the podcast, where high achievers and ambitious souls come for the kind of support that fuels both inner growth and outer strength. This is your space for real tools and deep truths, for meeting life's greatest challenges with grace, resilience, and self-connection, and also expanding into your next level of purpose. I'm Molly Claire, your host, master coach, mentor, and guide, because life mastery is not about checking boxes. It's about how you meet yourself in every moment along the way. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. I decided to bring to you a special rebroadcast of a conversation that I had a couple of years ago around grief. You are going to be hearing from three incredible women who teach on grief and guide their clients through it as well. And this might seem like a funny topic to bring, considering that we're in the midst of this holiday season and there's so much celebration going on. The holidays can also be a heavy and difficult time for many people for many reasons, even if not completely a heavy time, right? We can have joys, we can have things we love, and we can also have those moments of feeling sadness or a sense of loss at the things in our life that we wish were different, or relationships that we've lost along the way. There are just so many ways that grief can present itself. And so I wanted to give you this gift of a little bit of understanding of the griefs that you may be experiencing. I encourage you to take this in and listen to this. Of course, those of you that are coaches, listening to this through the lens of how you can support your clients. And also for those of you who are here simply for that personal mastery, really think about how you can honor and make space for the grief that you feel, that ultimately it doesn't need to hold you back. It doesn't need to hold you hostage. So I know you're going to love this episode. It's so incredible. And by the way, we are finalizing enrollment for Master Coach Training 2026. Applications close January 3rd. There are only 12 spots. If you are ready to become the coach who understands how to support your clients through every emotion, through every season of life, help them with nervous system regulation, and help them to have the most powerful mindset possible, this is for you. You can go to mollyclaire.com, or you can find the link in the show notes here. Make sure to submit your application and really go all in on creating change for you and your clients in the year to come. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this incredible episode. All right, so I have three powerhouse women again here on the podcast. Krista St-Germain, who is a grief coach, Mikki Gardner, who is a conscious parenting coach, specifically co-parenting, and Sharon, the amazing best-selling author of Tired But Wired, chronic fatigue coach. So welcome, all of you. I'm going to go ahead and have each of these women just share who you are and what you love to do. And then I just have so many questions for all of you. So Krista, welcome. Tell us a little about what you do.
Thank you, Molly. Always happy to be in the same Zoom room with you. So I, as you said, am Krista St-Germain, and I specifically love helping widowed moms. I think there's this place in grief, which we can talk about. I call it a grief plateau, but a lot of my clients get stuck there. My husband died in 2016, and that's almost where I got stuck, right? Like I survived those early days of grief and then kind of got to a place where I couldn't really imagine that I could ever be truly happy again. And that's what I love helping women figure out, is how do you really love life again when the life you thought you wanted is not an option anymore, and the person you really wanted to do life with has died. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, we'll talk more about, on this episode, we're kind of talking about grief and the different facets of it. And that's why I thought this would be such an interesting group, because each of you are working with your clients in different ways that grief shows up, right? Different ways we experience it. And of course, Krista, you offer an advanced grief certification too. So,
and I'm also obsessed with post-traumatic growth. So my advanced certification is grief and post-traumatic growth.
Yeah. Love it. And Krista will be teaching in the Master Coach Training, of course, in the coming year. So Mikki, tell us about you.
Hi. Hello. I'm Mikki Gardner. I am a conscious co-parenting coach, And I really focus on helping moms post-divorce or separation learn how to co-parent with confidence, clarity, and calm. Really learning how to navigate the process because there's a lot of complexity to it, and how to do it from a peaceful place, even when your ex doesn't change.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about as we were planning to record this is that it's so funny for me to say this now because it seems so obvious, but I never really understood the grief that comes with divorce and that I very much experienced, but didn't label it as that. And so, of course, as you're helping them co-parent, that grief will come up and get in the way, can get in the way, if not. Right?
It absolutely does. And I don't think that it's one of those times in life where people really sort of identify grief or are necessarily expecting it. Yes. But when you have the death of the family that you thought you had, the dreams that you thought you had for your future, when all of that is gone, it really is a grieving process. And to be able to help women go through that and grow through it is really what I try to help focus on, because it's not talked about all that often.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And Mikki, of course, has contributed in my advanced certification and will be teaching a class this summer in Master Coach training.
So excited.
Okay, Sharon, tell us what you do. I feel so connected to all of you at a personal level and also because of what you do, right?
I'm Sharon Wirant, and I am a chronic fatigue coach. I love helping women, although I have had a few men work with me as well, reclaim their energy from whether they have CFSME, they have chronic fatigue from an autoimmune condition, if they have fatigue from burnout, chronic stress. It all affects our energy level. And along with helping people reclaim their energy, we do have to work through that grief process, because it's a time when we might be revisiting the death of a loved one, the death or a end of a chapter in their life, whether that's a marriage, a partnership, a career. We have to work through all of that. So then that allows the energy to come back as you start to redesign and recreate what it is you want from your life.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons, and of course, Sharon, you're going to be teaching in the Master Coach training this summer as well. But I wanted to bring all of you here together, of course, because we're talking about grief. And I've been talking a lot about this holistic view of coaching, right? Because if those of you listening, if you could see these women as they're talking, and especially I was watching as Sharon was talking, kind of motioning toward the body, right? And how those emotions come up in the body. And so we're talking about grief. We're also talking about how having an understanding of how the brain, the body, emotions, nervous system, and all those approaches to coaching really matter, and how when we can see them all, we can coach so much more effectively, right? And Sharon, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I know when I got hit with chronic fatigue, I was in my early 30s. I had young kids, and I experienced a lot of loss and grief and sadness as to what happened. I was high energy. I was involved with my kids. I was doing all the things. And now I'm on the couch. I'm doing the bare minimum. And it was hard. It really was. I would say it felt like a lot of grief and loss. And I don't think I realized at the time that that's what I was experiencing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Okay. I'd love to understand, and I'll just throw this out there and you can all speak up, or just if some of you have an answer to this, but I'd be curious to know how grief specifically comes up for your clients. I'll give you an example, right? So for me, as I'm working, well, it comes up in all kinds of ways, right? But as I'm working specifically with moms in building their business, for example, there's so much grief even in what they believed their life was going to be like, how they believed their kids were going to turn out, right? So in that space, that's often how it can come up for people. When I'm coaching people in their business and building their business, there's often a lot of conflict between business and personal life. And lo and behold, what comes up? Grief, sadness, loss about how their marriage is versus how they wanted it to be, right? So it can come up in all of these different ways. But I'd love to hear from each of you kind of how and where you see it coming up for your clients. or how it manifests even.
I feel like mine is, not surprising.
Yeah.
Right. But also in some ways it really is surprising because I think so often when my clients, they're all widows, they're all humans identifying as women and therefore as widows, maybe not necessarily married, but having had children, lost their person. That's the loss they tend to think about, right? That primary loss is the loss of the person. But what you find is that, nobody really talks about secondary losses unless you're in the grief world. What they're often struggling with is so much more, sometimes the secondary losses. All the things, so the primary loss being the loss of their person, the secondary loss being all the other knockoff impacts of the loss of that person on their lives, all the other ways they thought life was going to go or life should have gone. So it's sometimes losses they can't even imagine yet because they haven't happened.
Yeah.
Right. And we're kind of navigating them in real time.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes it's the loss of what they thought their relationship should have been like in the past. Right. Or the person they thought they should have been in that relationship.
Yeah.
And so it does seem like, it's easy to say, well, grief is just sadness or loneliness or, something simplistic, but really there's many layers. It doesn't stop. And so much of what we have to work through it hasn't even happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as you were talking, this is kind of funny because every one of you listening right now is pretty bought into coaching, right? We're speaking to coaches here. But, as Krista was talking, and I was just thinking about what a gift it is to your clients that you understand all of that, right? Because for most people, they lose their partner, they lose their spouse. Most people in their life don't really know or understand that. So just another reminder to all of you as coaches, whether it's grief or whatever you help your clients with, just really matters to show up and hold that space for those things they don't even know they need space held for.
I think too, it shows up so often. I think, Krista was just saying about the secondary losses. It's the things that you don't even realize.
Yes.
Right. That where grief shows up. And so many people aren't able to necessarily identify their emotions or feelings outside of, the basic sad, mad, glad. So it all just sort of gets put in the sad bucket and nobody wants to be in the sad bucket. And so I find that that's often with clients, there's a resistance and not wanting to, they are sad, they are grieving, but not understanding what's happening, how to identify it really. And then most importantly, how to move through it, how to experience the grief, because it does come in, as we all know, in waves. It's not one and done. It's a process. It's going, and then it happens again. And there's a frustration with why does it keep coming back? And learning how to understand what it is and how to move with it in life, I think is a really valuable tool for a lot of people. And I know for the moms that I work with, there's the shattered relationships, there's the dreams that are no longer there or the family that you thought. And then oftentimes, a lot of my clients have experienced infidelity, which there's a whole new level of grief on top of that and shame. And so all of those things, it becomes a really muddled, hard place to process on your own.
And as you were talking, and one thing I want to have you speak up, Sharon, as well next about how you see grief manifesting. But I also, as I'm hearing from you, both of you so far, Krista and Mikki, the next thing I'd like to really talk about is kind of how you see this holistic approach supporting your clients in this, right? Because there are ways we can help them with I like to think of it as like, what is the entry point that a client needs at a given time? Is it the entry point of cognitive work? Is it the entry point of emotions or the body? What are these different options? And so with these emotions and these experiences that tend to be pretty big and complex, I think we almost have to have that broader view to actually be supportive and effective in the way that they need it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, Sharon.
Yes. So with my clients, I kind of see a variety. On one hand, I might see such deep resistance to wanting to go down or to even explore or even talk about their sadness. But for me as a coach, I can clearly see it through, their body motions, how they're holding themselves, what they're looking at or not looking at. I have some clients who really want to start exploring, and I try to support them with those areas, through questioning. And then I have some other tools that really helps people to allow the flow of the emotion while they're able to start peeling away the onion to have an idea of what they are really grieving. Because a lot of the times when they come to me, they don't know. They're all focused in on what's wrong with my body. Why am I so sick? Why is this happening to me?
Yes.
That we really have to look at it from all sorts of different perspectives.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, Sharon, you do a lot of work with the body, a lot of emotion work.
I do. Yeah.
When you were talking about, and I know many of you listening can relate to this personally and probably with your clients, that feeling some of those emotions. I mean, it's easy for us to say, just feel the emotions. They're only feelings. But some of these feelings, they feel like so much. And I know that I can just say in my, personal journey over the last several years of just really not wanting, I just remember popping out of my mouth when I was with my coach, like, I'm just afraid that if I open up this sadness, like it's just going to completely shut me down. If I open this door, I'm just going to be so deeply sad and depressed forever. And so I think that fear is there, which again is the value in us being able to, I feel like, just kind of hold our client's hand and like tiptoe them into being with these emotions in a way that's tolerable, right? Instead of overwhelming. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you, just kind of going back to this idea of how you personally see having this more whole view of different ways you can help your clients makes a difference versus just kind of having a one size fits all approach.
Well, I'd like to dive in on this, because the way I discovered how to have a holistic approach is a big part of my journey, and how I discovered that it was more than mindset work that I needed to reclaim my own energy. I started this way back in 2015, where I was feeling like I had no purpose. The chapter of my own career that I worked really hard in was coming to a close, and I think I sensed that. And so there was some grief for me there, and it literally just kind of felt like these dark clouds coming over. So I did some more emotion-based coaching. Then I went to mindset coaching. And with the mindset coaching, I changed an awful lot of how I viewed things. But I remember having a coach tell me, because I was still so tired, I was going through my toxic mold detox. And this coach was basically telling me it was my thinking around being tired all the time. And if I just had a different belief, and it wasn't working. And so a program that you referred me to, Molly, was very, very eye-opening and life-changing for me, because it was one technique that just really helped me to get into my body, feel it. And then it literally, which I described in my book, about it felt like there was this champagne bottle just smack dab in my chest with the cork right here. And as we were doing a tapping session, and all of a sudden it was like everything just went, it was the release. And it was stuff that I really didn't, as you said, you didn't want to explore, because you were afraid that it was just going to take you down. And it was so gentle. And this was over several sessions with my coach doing this, that, I mean, that was it. And all of a sudden it just slowly, I started feeling my energy come back.
Yeah. And I think that as you were talking, I was thinking, what a good example of how I think sometimes one approach can work for a while or can work for certain things, and then it doesn't anymore, right?
Correct.
Or you can be in a moment where, okay, the cognitive mindset work is helpful in these ways, not so helpful in those ways. because I was thinking about what you were saying about your thoughts about being tired. Because I know for me, for example, when I have like a chronic fatigue crash, or if I get sick and I notice my fears start coming up about, oh no, am I going to be tired forever now? Right? I can both, for me, use that cognitive space of helping to keep perspective, right? But then really attuning to what my body needs instead of trying to override the message that my body's giving me.
I was excellent. I was a professional at overthinking. What I've learned is that you can't think your way into healing.
No, you cannot.
You cannot.
And, a couple of weeks ago, I shared a little about my experience over the last few years. And it was actually, I had hired Krista St-Germain, who's right here, to help me with mindset work, because I was like, I need a coach who's just going to I thought I needed Krista, and turns out I did, but not for the reasons that I thought. And we did some work. And that's when Krista, you were the one that really opened the door to saying you need something different here, because I think you could tell there was some nervous system activation. There was some trauma happening, and it was what I needed. And at that point in time, I really had to shut down all the cognitive work I was doing pretty much, because it not only was it not helpful, but I was using it against myself, and it needed to stop. Yeah. So, oh my gosh. See, so this episode could go for such a long time. We talked about that before we started. I gotta keep it reined in so we don't keep you here all day. Okay, Mikki, tell us, what about you for having that holistic view and approach?
Yeah. I mean, I think piggybacking on what was just said, if we could just mindset our way to everything, it would be so easy.
It
would be great, right?
No feelings involved, please.
There's no feelings. But if there's one thing that we are really good at, especially women, is suppressing our feelings. Mm-hmm. We have been taught from popping out of the womb to suppress, and that our feelings are not valid, that they aren't safe, that we shouldn't have them. So with all of this messaging and, couple it with all of the good girl kind of, be quiet messaging, basically all it says to us is don't feel your feelings and do what you can to suppress them. And then I think we have to look at it. There's feelings and emotion. As I see it, feelings come from thoughts, right? Which we've all learned. Most of us coaches love the model. But then there's emotions, which are energy and motion. And these are the things that just sort of happen, right? Grief. You lose something, you feel it everywhere, right? That's not coming from your thinking. That's coming from emotion, energy and motion in your body. And so I think we have to look at it in a different perspective of what we know, what we don't know. And all of this, our full body, our mind is only a tiny percentage of our body. We have to really learn to step into energetically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of it, to be able to process some of these really big feelings that people are experiencing, like grief, sadness, anger. So I think we all need to have a better, more holistic understanding and approach so that we can navigate what's going on or direct someone right where they need to go. It might not be that you have every answer, because we don't have all the answers, but I think broadening our perspective so that we can, in our sort of tool belt, to be able to help identify what's going on and help them navigate that journey.
Yeah. And I think, as you were talking, Mikki, those of you listening, I did an episode talking about, there've been a couple of episodes regarding therapy versus coaching. And I also talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I had interviewed Leah and Lindsay and Melanie and talked about kind of where is this line between coaching and therapy, right? Is it blurry? Is it clear? And I just want to reiterate that there is space of crossover for sure. And I think where we can be more effective, better equipped as coaches, and more ethical is when we do have a broader perspective so that we can be effective at the things we do as a coach, and then know when we do need to refer out, right? And what things really are outside of our scope. And so I think having that more whole view helps us to more easily do that. Yeah. All right, Krista, what about you? Thoughts about more of a holistic approach?
Yeah, I just remember kind of coming into this work and not really having what we would call a holistic approach?
Yes, I hear you.
And just looking back and reflecting on, intentions being in a very good place, of course, and always a desire to help, but just how not having a holistic approach can limit your idea of what help can look like, right? When you think about spousal loss, for example, and you're feeling a lot of sadness or a lot of loneliness or a lot of what we might classify as quote unquote negative emotions of grief, it could be really easy to think that, what a person wants is to not feel those things anymore. And I think some of the tools that I initially used, I was kind of using to that end of like, let me help you identify why you are feeling the way that you are feeling so that we can change the way that you are feeling.
Yeah, let's identify how we can easily turn that off right at the root.
Right. As though, which I feel like the more holistic approach is, as though feelings are problems.
Right.
Which they aren't. As though the goal after a loss is to not feel certain emotions and only feel others, which is not. I know, most of the women that I work with would not want to be happy that their person died. So it's not so much how do I think differently so I can feel differently. It's like, how do I think about how I am feeling so I can support myself?
Yeah.
Which is again, a broader stroke.
Yes. Yeah. I wish when you said that, those of you listening, I wish you could see the video because all the heads on video started nodding. Yes, that's really what it is, right? How do I support myself in this? And that's one of the things that I'm really big on helping my clients with. What's interesting, right, is I'm teaching advanced coaching and advanced coaching techniques and, master coach training and such. And a lot of the work I do with my clients is I'm coaching them in their business, right? So why in the world would grief come up there? But wow, it sure does, right? And so that's what's been interesting is that like being trauma informed and me having kind of this broader view and a broader approach, it is 100% relevant as I'm working with women building their business. Because as they're building their business, they're realizing they're coming up against this deep stuff that's telling them that they can't make money or they're not worthy or they don't have permission or they don't have choices. And so it's always just such a reminder to me that as human beings, we are so complex and we have so much going on inside and we have so much we've inherited from the generations before. So no matter what type of coach you are, no matter what you're coaching people on, you just absolutely have to understand that humans are multidimensional and require a multifaceted approach, at least the awareness. Yeah. So, Mikki, you are smiling. I feel like I want to know what's happening in your brain.
I just thought it was such an excellent point. It's like we're so complex, yet we want these, just give me the right answer. Just tell me how to fix it. Just tell me how to change it. And that's we all sort of have that desire just to get it done. Yeah. But, to really be able to step in and teach people how to navigate their life going forward, they need a lot of tools to do that. Right. And it's not just one way or the other. And so it made me smile because, it would be great if we could just have one tool that worked for everything.
Would be great. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I want to speak to that just a little bit because even going along with the telling people what to do and the strategy, I think that's the beautiful thing is that when we have a broader view and we know how, the different approaches, sometimes it is giving a specific tool or strategy or plan, right? But we can do it in a way where our clients are actually able to do it and able to be successful because we're looking at the whole person, right? Which is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think giving clients opportunities to experiment and be playful with different types of tools so that they put themselves in the position of expert on what works for them, given what's going on for them, knowing that it might be different yesterday than it's going to be, in 2 weeks, but giving them options and tools and the ability to experiment with those so that they have a felt experience of what would work best for me in this moment. I'm always changing the tools I am working with.
Yeah.
For myself.
Exactly. And I think also it's kind of I think as we become more skilled and more knowledgeable as coaches, it becomes easier for us to support our clients in understanding what will work for them as well, right? As we help them kind of play with different things. And as we also take different approaches with them and they experience how those work differently for them. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I would love to know, because I know I can say for myself that, so I trained in 2014. In 2015, I signed up for a master coach training through the Life Coach School. And I did it because I wanted business help, actually. So this is a funny story. My sister and I were on our way to our first mastermind, and she said, Molly, you cannot let me sign up for master coach training. And I said, oh, I won't. I said, I'm not signing up for that. My coaching is fine. I need help with business. This is what I said to her, which is hilarious to me now to think back at how little I knew and how big my confidence was, right? And so we get there and we hear the spiel about master coach training. And I look over at her and I said, oh, I'm doing that. And she's like, wait a minute, what? You were supposed to be the one to keep me from doing this. So, but here's my point in telling this story is that I wanted help with business, and definitely there is business strategy, right? There is no question about that. But I kind of fell into expanding my that first step, at least in expanding my coaching ability sort of by accident, right? But what I noticed for me is that the more skilled I became and the more confident I became, right? First with master coach training and then training coaches and creating curriculum and advanced, like all of these things, the greater confidence I've had, and especially the confidence I've had that I really can be the right support for my clients, has been a huge confidence booster for me in terms of building my business, right? And making offers and charging. So I'd be curious to hear from each of you, how has as your skills and your knowledge has grown and expanded, how has that impacted you in terms of being able to be businesswoman, right? Do the business part of your business. Yeah.
To me, so much of being successful in business is believing that you can help. Right.
Yeah.
And so truly, if I believe that, and as I have learned more and, taken different courses and done different certifications and just to continue to learn and grow and educate myself, my confidence grows, my ability to help my clients grows. It just oozes into every part of the business. It can't not. I don't think I'll ever reach a point where I believe I'm done learning, or that there's not more to learn, or that
right.
I know better than my clients. I never ever want to be in that place. But I love the feeling that when somebody's in front of you and you just know with every fiber of your being that you've got something for them, right? It's such a good feeling. And that really is what leads to making you want to make offers and want to overcome objections and do the things that are required to do to get people in your program and then get them the results. You got to have the confidence.
Yeah. And I think, and I want to hear from you as well, Mikki and Sharon, on this, but I wanted to just mention also that, one of the things that I think it's important for coaches to remember is that you can have a very successful, thriving business with a lot of warm referrals when you lead with great coaching, right? Now, I know, Krista, your business is, when you have a business like yours, you definitely have to know some marketing and sales, right? When you're wanting $1 million plus business. But I think sometimes we don't realize there are a lot of different ways that you can have a business, right? And I think people forget sometimes the value in competent and confident coaching, even in the marketing space, right? And sales space, because it makes a difference for sure.
I know you've already interviewed Melanie, and your audience probably now loves her, but she is such a good example of that. Who she literally does no marketing.
No,
because she's so good that we're all shouting it from the rooftops.
I know.
Yeah,
she doesn't know.
Yeah, her website. I love you, Melanie, but your website.
I know. It's true. I'm like, this is the website, and all she does is she just shows up and creates this healing space. She does magical work, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, can you help me more? And can you help all these people?
Yeah. than throwing money at her because she's so good. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, Mikki, how about you? How have you seen your expansion of your skills help you as a business owner?
Yeah, I think I want to take this from the sort of one-to-one coach because that's who I am, and really working one-to-one with people. And especially I think when you're a newer coach, right? It can feel like we have to have all of the, like there's so many you could just live in the certification trying to get more and more.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And I think what I've noticed is the more that I expand my knowledge and then learn how to bring that back, right? Actually sort of not just use it in my own life, but then how do I learn to apply it to my clients? It creates so much more confidence. And that confidence spills over into your business, into how you present, everything. But I think it's so important to have this holistic approach and really being willing to expand, because I mean, just the other day, I had a new client. I have sort of I know high level, this is how we're going to start and this is what's going to happen. And she came in last week, and right now there's the Israeli-Palestinian war going on. And this was week 2. I had my agenda. I knew where we were headed. And she said, I grew up in Israel and we had to leave because of the war. And she was in full PTSD. And I think looking back at it, I was so grateful for the training and the work that I've done, that I had the ability to sit with her and process, because I bring it up because I think our clients, they're always expanding and things are always happening. And really just knowing that you have the knowledge, not to fix anything, but to be able to bear witness to what's going on for someone, to hold space, to help them process if that's appropriate. But in that moment, we just needed to walk through the grief of what she was experiencing and feeling. And there was no work to do. There was just space to be held. And so it was one of those reminders to me that it's really our duty and responsibility, I think, as people who are in the healing space, to continue to know and to work to be that presence for them, because they need it. They need that. Why we're doing this.
Yes. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how true that is, that not only are human beings complex, but on a week-to-week basis, right? My client today is going to be different than she was last week. She's in a different frame of mind, right?
100%. Yeah. And I think, and for all the one-to-one coaches out there, I know that I'm raising my hand to being in this boat, thinking we're not doing enough, right? We don't have the groups and the this and the impact, but you helping your clients, I know me helping my moms, that helps their children. That helps their ex. That helps their friends. That helps their family. And when we want to make impact in this world, that's the ripple effect. And so really standing firm and grounded in helping, whether it's groups, whether it's one-to-one, whatever you're doing the best that you can and coming at it from that energy and that holistic approach, I think is just, it's underrated, but we all need it.
And I want to point out too, all the people that never actually pay you, but are impacted by the work that you do, right?
100%.
The reels, the posts, the emails, the podcasts, whatever it is. It always amazes me how I'll hear from someone who I've never actually encountered, and something that I wrote way back when made a difference, right? Because I decided to write it, to speak up, to show up. Yeah. Sharon, how about you in terms of, expanding in knowledge and growth and skill and confidence, and how that spills over into you as a business owner?
It really brings a sense of confidence, and to take my imposter, kind of put her to the side and remind her, come on, we've got this. We know what we're doing. It has just brought that wave of confidence and really wanting to get the message out that, hey, this work can really help you and help you reclaim your energy, create that life that you're looking for. But what I also have to say is that it has also brought to me how I express myself a little bit more publicly. In the past, I would be, just sit in the background and kind of, wait for somebody to call on me, sit in the back of the room, but now I'm speaking up more. And as you just mentioned, how, people that I don't even know that might follow me on social media will say something. I love what you write. And even if I'm not writing about my business, I might be writing about, some event I may have done with my dog or something. And I always put a little something in there to help people with the expansion, with knowledge that, they're being human. I just remember a friend of mine that I knew through the dog sports that I do. And she says, my mom loves following you. She loves what you have to say. I don't know her. So as I've expanded, as I've built my knowledge and my experience, that confidence comes with wanting to help more. I love the one-on-ones. I love going real deep with people, but I'm realizing that, especially with people with chronic fatigue or have an illness stemming from burnout or an autoimmune, they may not have the energy to actually do one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So I am in the middle of creating a group program where they can start to build upon the tools to create a pool of energy so that then they can start getting a little bit deeper.
I love it. We're going to wrap it up here in just a second, but I want to share just from my perspective as I'm, speaking to all of you coaches that there is definitely a spillover in your confidence and your certainty in how well you're serving your clients and the boldness with which you offer your services. How easy it is for you to make an offer, to set your pricing, to sell your coaching. Because if you're having all of this doubt and insecurity, which by the way is normal, right? It's not like, oh, you shouldn't be having that. No, you are, but pay attention to it. Make sure that you are clear for yourself on the skills you have and that you offer and the skills that you don't offer, or the skill gaps that you may want to fill, right? So that you can expand what you can do. But I just want to emphasize that while the abilities and skills of coaching are different than the skills of selling and marketing, it would be crazy to think that there is not spillover, because especially as coaches who want to help people, we are not going to feel in integrity if we don't feel like we can really help people and we're asking them to give us money, right? So it definitely matters. So if there's insecurity there, clean it up, whatever that looks like. Anything else any of you wanted to share before we wrap up? I don't want to cut you all off if something came to you and you wanted to share something.
What you were just talking about with maybe feeling that uncertainty, go within your body. Where do you feel that? And get curious about it, because there may be something underneath that, which is preventing you from stepping out as that coach, to setting your prices, to building your program. Mm-hmm. And get really curious about it, because as you resolve what that is, you're going to find that expansion within yourself to then step out into that spotlight.
Yes, I love it. And one thing that I wanted to mention just as we wrap up, and then of course, I would love to have each of you share where people can find your work specifically as we wrap up as well in a minute here. But just kind of bringing this full circle, my hope is that all of you listening are understanding the value in having a broader view. This doesn't mean that the coaching style that you have or the main approach that you take shouldn't be your main thing, because absolutely it can, right? And I think when you can understand more about the brain and the body and the nervous system and just the complexity of human beings, it allows your style and your coaching approach to be even more effective for sure. And just on the topic of grief, just being mindful that your clients and you will have grief come up in so many ways. So it's so vital to learn about it and to understand it. So, which is why I'm so glad Krista, of course, is going to be teaching some grief work in the Master Coach training curriculum. Mikki will be teaching some conscious parenting work. And of course, Sharon will be teaching some of her chronic fatigue work and energy and the specialty work that she does. So it's going to be amazing. Hopefully, I'm going to see many of you there. And I would love for all three of you women to share where people can find you if they want to do more of your work specifically with you. So Krista, we'll go with you, and then Mikki and Sharon.
Yeah. So coachingwithkrista.com is where everything can be found. So basically, if you are a coach, your opportunity, unless you're also a widow and a mom, opportunity to work with me is through my advanced certification, which is, I don't know when this airs, but probably about a week from now as we're recording it, releasing. But then also almost everybody knows a widow.
Mm-hmm.
And all those widows that feel like no one is seeing them or recognizing them. And so just referring people to listen to the Widowed Mom podcast is so appreciated from me and also from the widows who have yet to discover it. So, and of course, if you want to learn about grief and you're not a widow, you can just disregard the word widow and listen anyway.
Yeah. I love that. Amazing. Mikki, how about you?
My website is just my name, mikkigardner.com. And I think the thing I'm most proud of is probably my podcast, which is Co-Parenting with Confidence. And like Krista just said, there are so many people out there. I mean, divorce is so rampant at this point, especially post-pandemic, and really helping get the word out there that there's help. Because I think so many people go through divorce alone and they think that they have to do it all on their own. And they are not understanding that there's help beyond just the traditional therapy and other things. And so I would appreciate sort of people referring that, because it's important that we just learn to link arms and offer support and be there. And so that's really the podcast and Instagram.
And what about your book, Mikki? When is your book coming out? What's happening?
Thank you, Molly.
I'm like, I think there's a book.
I'm so embarrassed. I got to get better at this. I wrote a book. Thank you, Molly. So the People Pleaser's Guide to Co-Parenting Well is going to be released sometime in November. I will have the date soon. Yes. So that will be coming out, and hopefully that helps tons of people.
And if they go to your website or your Instagram, they can find it and buy it and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Everything is happening this week, getting all integrated and uploaded and ready for the fun. So I can't wait.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sharon, how about you? Where can people find you and the work you do?
They can find me at SharonWirant.com. My last name is spelled WIRANT, and I have just one R in my first name. They can also find out about me through my book, Tired Yet Wired. I wrote this as one of my projects when I was working with Molly. And I talk about my own journey, as well as just a handful of tools that helped me to reclaim my energy. And then lastly, I do have a quiz out that you can take that's all about your fatigue archetype. So most people first figure out about their fatigue, about maybe some behaviors that they do, because that's much more outward. And what we do through the quiz is we find out which of your fatigue archetype is out of balance. And then with some work with me, we rebalance that. But obviously within that, we go through some deeper levels. So for coaches, this work can be great with helping you to maintain that balance as you're building your business. But if you also have a loved one or a friend who is suffering from chronic fatigue, whether that's CFS, ME, or they're just tired all the time, they're burning out, working with me can really help them to get clear around what's making them burned out and to help them reclaim their energy so that they can create that, what it is they want out of their life.
Yeah.
Because people who have chronic illness, I mean, they absolutely feel invisible. Friends and family typically don't understand. And in our medical community, they are super busy. They don't quite have the time to investigate what's really happening. So between coaching, the emotional work, and just some, I help guide my clients with, maybe different testing that they might want to consider or what could be causing their fatigue.
it can be such a black hole of like information and where do I go, and feeling dismissed by doctors or minimized and people not understanding. So I love all that work that you do.
Yeah, love to support people through that.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thanks for being here and for investing this time in you. Keep showing up. Keep meeting yourself with compassion. That's truly what Life Mastery is all about. If you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And I would be honored if you would take the time to leave me a review. This ensures that this important work will get in the hands of more people. And if you're ready to take this work deeper, join me at mollyclaire.com, where you can find all of the ways we can work together. I'll talk with you next week.